What does it actually mean to be creative? Picasso once questionably said, "Good artists copy, great artists steal." Think about that for a second. Ideas in pre-existing work can be borrowed, transformed, combined, and remixed as a form of creative expression. The act of appropriation has a pretty long history in art. Some see it as acceptable, while others view it as pure plagiarism. Can creating art actually be theft? In this video, we are going to be looking at the history of appropriation in art and the artists that do it.
Appropriation in art explained and artists that use it.
Appropriation refers to artists using pre-existing images or objects into their own work. At times, they even challenge concepts. This borrowing of existing material in a new context is called recontextualization. We can describe this as visual sampling, similar to how DJs sample musical content to create a new song. If we start in the early 20th century, George Braque and Pablo Picasso used mass media in their work with their synthetic cubist collages. These were early appropriations of real-world materials. In 1917, Marcel Duchamp transformed a urinal into a work of art and caused an uproar. He labeled these transformed sculptures as ready-mades. He didn't make anything, but asked viewers the philosophical question of what art is and what the artist does. The ready-made defied the notion that art must be beautiful. So World War I passes and artists now use art to not just describe the world as they see it, but to also access the human soul, spirit, or subconscious. Max Ernst and Hannah Hoch, associated with the Dada and Surrealist art movements, appropriated images from magazines and objects to create bizarre or absurd artworks. Salvador Dali and other Surrealist artists also explored sculpture through appropriation. American artist Joseph Cornell is best known for his glass-fronted boxes into which he placed and arranged Victorian items, old photographs, trinkets, and other found elements. He didn't create any of these objects, but simply assembled and arranged them. In the mid-20th century, appropriation begins to take on new significance as artists start to bring the conceptual into the forefront, instead of just relying on the visual. Robert Rauschenberg was an American painter and graphic artist. He is known for his combines of the 1950s, which married painting and sculpture. Jasper Johns was another influential American artist at this time. Rauschenberg and Johns appropriated everyday objects into their sculptures and would become big influences with the upcoming pop art movement. So America is now in its post-World War II economic boom and people are feeling good. Consumer products are readily available in supermarkets. Television, films, and movie stars are popular and everyone wished to chase the American dream. Advertising communicates what to buy. With this new popular culture, pop art is born. Pop artists referenced the world that people knew. Everyday items and celebrities were highlighted through scale and repetition. Boundaries between high art and low art were being broken by artists such as Andy Warhol, James Rosenquist, Roy Lichtenstein, and Klaus Oldenburg. British pop art, however, had a different tone than in America. It reflected the reality gap that existed between the glamour and affluence represented by the US and the rationing and hardships experienced in post-war Britain. Sir Edward Palozzi was a Scottish artist whose collages were credited for launching the pop art movement. Richard Hamilton was another well-known British pop artist. His works were a parody of American materialism. Sister Corita Kent was a nun and a contemporary of Andy Warhol and Ed Ruscha. She would tear, rip, or crumple an image or package she liked, then re-photograph it to appropriate in her own silkscreen work, often with positive messages. John Baldessari incorporated text and photography into his art. His work appropriated images combined with the associative power of language and also utilized juxtaposition by taking images out of their original context. He is also remembered for his dot work, where he placed a dot sticker over people's faces. Martha Rosler is well known for her Bringing the War Home series of the late 60s and early 70s. Using images from Life magazine, Rosler juxtaposed images of war and domestic interiors. They were also used to protest the Vietnam War. Through his artwork, Robert Colescott raised interesting questions about racism in America. He did this through lampooning art history by inserting people of color into iconic paintings to recontextualize them. Dara Birnbaum is an American video artist who gained prominence in the 1970s. Her work included feminist themes that challenged gender biases of television. In this famous work, she cut, repeated, and deconstructed the moment the woman character changes into Wonder Woman. With this, she subverts the original meaning and the role of the woman. In the 1960s onwards, Nam June Pak's video-based works appropriated and manipulated mass media footage. Images and sounds were electronically distorted as a form of cultural criticism. Since we are on the topic of video, let's jump ahead a bit. In 2010, Christian Markley debuted The Clock. It is a 24-hour film that collages glimpses of clocks from thousands of film clips and tells the actual time. In the late 1970s and early 80s, shifts were occurring. New theories about the impossibility of originality began to emerge. The act of interpreting art was now more important than the act of creating. What emerged was artists reconfiguring existing works to create other meanings. An exhibit was held in 1977 in New York entitled Pictures. These artists explored the boundaries between images and reality, originals and reproductions. These artists became known as the Pictures Generation. They challenged and blurred answers to what originality, authenticity, and appropriation meant. One of these artists was Sherry Levine. She reproduced by borrowing and copying works with little or no alteration. She is well known for her Walker Evans photographs. Walker Evans photographed the Great Depression in America, and Levine photographed these actual photos from a catalog and then presented them as her own work. Obviously, this raises issues regarding intellectual property rights and plagiarism. Louise Lawler also raises questions about the production, circulation, and presentation of art. She takes pictures of other artists' work and is questioning the value, meaning, and use of art. Cindy Sherman is a socially political photographer, where she recreated imaginary film stills of stereotypical female characters. In these photos, she also acts as the model. Richard Prince is perhaps the ultimate appropriation artist and one of the most controversial. His mass media images redefine ownership and authorship. He is well known for his Cowboy series from the early 1980s, where he rephotographed Marlboro ads and cropped out the text, representing the ideal masculine figure. In 2014, he debuted his new portrait series, where he displayed Instagram images of strangers. His only change were the comments made underneath. Elaine Sturdivant is another American artist that became famous for copies or repetitions of other artists' work. She did receive criticism for her work and was often dismissed, though some applauded her. Barbara Kruger is most famously known for her silkscreen prints where she places slogans over black and white photographs that she finds in magazines. Her work is informed by feminism and critiques consumerism and culture. Sigmar Polk was a German artist known for his non-traditional materials in his paintings and photographs. Polk offered an ironic critique of consumerism in post-war Germany. His supermarket series has superheroes shopping at a grocery store. Richard Pettibone is often seen as having paved the way for contemporary appropriation art. He created inventive miniature replicas of works by other famous artists. He usually signs the original artist's name as well as his own. Indigenous Canadian artist Carl Beam explored the tensions between Western and Indigenous relations. The collage and photo transfer techniques he often used allowed him to visually bring together subjects and events from different historical moments with political commentary. American artist Kathleen Gillia is best known for appropriations of old master paintings which combine their historical origins with new contemporary ideas and perspectives. American artist Mike Bidlow does something similar to Gillia. He recreated paintings by 20th century masters in his Knot series. By copying the artist's subjects and styles with exacting detail, Bidlow, like other artists, confronts the concept of authenticity within fine art. Now let's look at some Asian artists. Several Chinese artists use images from the Cultural Revolution juxtaposed with kitsch and advertising images from the West. Shang-Chi rose to prominence in the mid-1980s. Several of his works focus around issues of identity and communication. Protesting the Tiananmen Massacre in 1989, he cut off his pinky finger and left it buried in a flower pot whilst in exile in Europe. This is also echoed in several of his artworks. The Luo brothers use propaganda and quiche items from the Cultural Revolution, as well as chubby babies. Their work is about cultural change in China, rather than a critique of either communism or capitalism. Yu Yuhan began his Mao series in 1989, where he created portraits of Mao's everyday life. His paintings represent China's history and merges a hybrid with Monroe and Mao and other Western artists as inspiration. Wang Wengji uses propaganda imagery alongside capitalist logos. He repurposes historical images of Chinese propaganda, mashing them up with branded symbols, text, and other imagery from Western advertisements. Since the 1980s, Japanese artist Yasumasu Morimura has been photographing himself into iconic images from art history, mass media, and popular culture. He uses makeup and costumes to transform himself, as he is also the model in the works. He is often compared to Cindy Sherman. Singaporean artist Andre Tan uses pop art sensibilities to explore popular icons and cultural motifs under a bright color palette. Singapore resident and Chinese artist Li Xuanqi's work is an ongoing reflection of personal identity embedded within popular culture. Billy Ma and his Buddha brand draws from contemporary themes. He combines Eastern and Western aesthetics into his artwork. Filipino artist Kobusher abstracts cartoon characters by twisting and deforming them. Continuing on our move, British artist John Stezaker is primarily a collage artist. His work appropriates pre-existing images such as postcards, film stills, and commercial photographs. Often coupling male and female identity into unified characters, his work has a disjointed harmony. Hank Willis Thomas is an African-American conceptual artist and explores issues of identity, history, race, and class. In his Unbranded project, he appropriated print images from 1968. He stripped their context by removing the text and logos to showcase cultural stereotypes and the way the media perpetuates them. Jeff Koons is one of the highest paid living artists. Similar to the work of conceptual artist Marcel Duchamp, Koons strips his objects of their purpose and shows them strictly as art. Like Klaus Oldenburg, Koons often shows everyday objects. Deborah Cass walks a fine line between homage and appropriation. She copies the signature styles of iconic male artists. Her work critically comments on the historical dominant position of male artists in the art world. Glenn Brown is a British artist. He often reproduces other artists' work, but transforms them by changing the color, position, size, etc. John Paul Foves is a contemporary artist from Costa Rica. In his paintings, he engages questions of identity as they relate to art history as well as our everyday interactions with mainstream culture and social media. Comics are another source that are heavily appropriated. Joyce Pensato is best known for her charcoal drawings and wall paintings of cartoon characters. Joe Fleming is a Toronto-based painter. Some of his work includes cartoon characters that tend to run off the frame against an abstracted background. George Morton Clark studied animation for 3 years, and this can be seen in his work involving cartoon characters. Arturo Herrera is a Venezuelan artist known for his mixing of cartoons and collage, which he often then abstracts. Now let's take a look at street artists. Everyone knows this poster, which was created by Shepard Fairey in 2008. However, this poster was involved in a court case for copyright infringement. Shepard Fairey repeatedly appropriated various images and raises the question of what is derivative and what is transformative. The godfather of graffiti art is Richard Mirando, better known as Scene. He was an early pioneer known for his inclusions of comic characters. British artist Banksy is probably the most popular street artist in the world. His works of political and social commentary have been featured on streets, walls, and bridges throughout the world. Mr. Brainwash is a French street artist. He subverts cultural iconography and borrows from Andy Warhol and Banksy. Cause is an American graffiti artist and designer known for his toys, paintings, and consumer work. He began reworking advertisements in his distinctive style, but has also abstracted cartoon characters. Deface is a contemporary British street artist, best known for his graffiti and deathly style similar to Roy Lichtenstein. Opaque One is another British artist that depicts cartoon characters against a graffiti-style background with tags and calligraphy. Speedy Graffito is considered a French pioneer of street art. He uses recognizable characters with a clear influence of Disney. Fail are a street art duo who collage various appropriated materials in their work. Kostas Sarametis is highly influenced by comic book art, cartoons, and graffiti. Ron English, a contemporary American artist, is best known for his brand imagery of pop culture. His practice involves the idea of culture jamming. Some of his best-known images include McSupersized, an obese reimagining of McDonald's famous clown. Dane combines the visual language of graffiti with collaged old portraits of Hollywood glamour stars. His trademark is a circle and drip around the eye of his subjects. You can also create by appropriating or remixing materials and objects. Australian contemporary artist Ben Frost's work is easily recognizable. He takes a pop art approach by mixing brand name packaging with everyday iconography. In Alex Gross's work, he combines his skills as a painter with antique photographs that he has acquired and transformed into iconic figures throughout pop culture. Artist Dave Pollitt takes otherwise overlooked thrift store paintings and transforms them into his own masterpieces. Jason Masur creates 3D mosaic portraits of his favorite pop culture icons. Each portrait is created from discarded objects and junk. Thomas Deininger creates mind-bending optical illusions in his found object sculptural assemblages. Australian Freya Jobbins creates some interesting work that involves plastic doll parts. Brian Youngin is an Indigenous Canadian artist. He manipulates consumer products to address consumerism and globalization. His work also addresses many misconceptions regarding First Nations identity. So, I think we can say great artists steal. What does it actually mean to be creative? Artists have used appropriation as a creative outlet to recontextualize images as a form of creative expression. Is appropriation acceptable? Is it plagiarism? Can creating art actually be theft? It's a very slippery topic, and one that you can be the judge on. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it informative and gained some insights. Feel free to subscribe, hit the like button, or leave a comment, question, or suggestion below.
This has been a video production.